Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, we're about to start. I am just so thrilled with this crowd. We were set for about 65, and we're putting out more chairs, so give yourselves a round of applause. Wow. Welcome to the July meeting of the Beacon Historical Society. My name is Denise Van Buren, and I'm the current president, and it's really an honor and a privilege for me to welcome you here. I want to begin by thanking the Elks Club for their hospitality. Are there any other Elks in the audience? Raise your hand so we can thank you for the hospitality. I hope you agree this is a nice venue for us. It's air conditioned, and there's plenty of parking. Upstairs, in case any of you wanted to possibly imbibe. Don't feel you have to, but I'm really grateful to the Elks. I'm especially grateful because they have been one of the first organizations to order one of our new Beacon Historical Society historic property plaques. The original building here was 1865, the Rothery Homestead, and we just ordered that plaque and we'll be placing it here on the Elks. So we're so grateful for our partnership. They have given us grants, they have been supportive, they've been one of our past honorees, and it really feels very comfortable to be here at the Elks. So with that, now that I got you all settled down, would you please rise so we can begin with a pledge to the flag? Please place your hand over your heart and stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, sit down, settle in, and get comfortable. We have some other folks who are coming in, so if you do have space in your row, please raise your hand, and our ladies from the Elks Club House Committee will help you to find a seat. I want to take a moment to thank all the volunteers and trustees from the Beacon Historical Society and all of our supporters who are here. Who agrees with me that Beacon is changing a little bit? You think? And so our mission is to make sure that we capture all of Beacon's history so that people understand what makes this such a very special and unique place to live in its sense of community. I want to invite you to come up to our headquarters at 61 Leonard Street, the former St. Joachim's Rectory. We have two wonderful displays right now. One is on the great estates of Beacon, and the second is on the legacy of Jimmy Lynch. How many of you live or work in a Jimmy Lynch house? I thought it would be even more, right? An enormous legacy here in Beacon, many of our most prominent buildings. So stop up and see our exhibit. We'd be so grateful for that. And I do want to thank all the volunteers that make that possible. When you come in, you should have gotten a door prize ticket, little pink ticket from our wonderful Vanna White, Susan Pagonis in the back. If you didn't get a door prize ticket, please see Susan so we make sure you're in that reading, in that drawing. I'm going to have one commercial message before we start the program that you all came for, and that is membership in the Historical Society. It's only $25 a year. You get our wonderful newsletter. You get to come to programs like this, invitations to special events. But most of all, you know that you are helping to preserve and celebrate Beacon's rich history. So if you're interested in membership, we have brochures on the back, or any of our trustees would be happy to tell you. Or you can very simply just go to our website and join online. So with that, welcome to our panel presentation. We've never done anything like this before. And we're going to give it a try because I found 5 shy, retiring, modest people. Why are they laughing? Who don't like to talk. And I said, wouldn't it be fun to hear what it was like from their perspectives as they grew up in Beacon? And I'm so glad that you're here tonight to hear a little bit more about it. So we have questions. We're going to alternate questions, and it's going to be a panel discussion. It's going to be a free-flowing discussion. But before we begin, let me allow each of them to introduce themselves a little bit. We'll start with Peter, who is never at a loss for words. Peter, tell us maybe a little bit about your parents, what street you lived on, that kind of a thing. Introduce yourself to this crowd tonight.
Sure. My name is Peter Foreman, and we grew up on Manel Place. My parents lived in a house that was built by my grandfather, Ted Foreman, in the late 50s. And we stayed in that house until the mid-60s. When my grandmother passed away, moved into the Belford Manor, where we are right now. Our family's been in the same house for just about 100 years in Beacon. And that was our neighborhood, Manel Place, Lafayette Avenue, behind the country club.
Very good. And your parents were
Tom and Dolores,
right? Okay.
Dolores, right?
Right. All right. Now, Sophie is no stranger to most abuse. Sophia DeRubio. Excuse me. Thank you for straightening that out. I wrote to her daughter-in-law and I said, boy, do you think that Sophia would be interested in talking about growing up in Beacon? She said, my mother-in-law? So I think we're in for a treat tonight. So, Sophia, tell us a little bit about your parents and what street you lived on when you were growing up in Beacon.
Okay. My maiden name is Chuck Hollis. I married Dan DeRubio. Norton, you probably knew him. And when I was little, we lived on Union Street, 64 Union Street, across from the St. Luke's Cemetery. And there's somebody in the audience, too, who lived next door.
Oh, how nice.
Right, Ginger?
How nice.
And then we built a restaurant. My mom and dad bought the house, and it was $5,000 for the house when
Wow.
they bought it.
Imagine.
And this
Imagine.
had 3 bedrooms, kitchen, dining room, cellar, attic, everything.
It would be over $1 million now, right?
Yeah,
So,
those were the days.
right, exactly.
And
Did you have siblings, Sophia?
Oh yeah, I had 2 brothers.
2 brothers.
Anthony and Tony and Peter Paul.
Okay, very good. I know
Pete,
we lost
some
Peter.
of you will probably remember, was killed in an automobile accident in 1960. And Tony just died in 2012.
Okay.
And he had moved to Florida. And my parents opened up a restaurant. They didn't have enough money to build. They bought the land in the city of Beacon, right where you probably know it as where Quinn's is. It used to be George's. A lot of you probably were there plenty of times. And they, it was funny because they didn't have enough money to build a restaurant. My dad went to the bank and he wasn't successful at all. My mom went, she probably lied like crazy and she got the loan.
There you go. There's a good lesson in that. Good. Well, thank you. So, Tony, I know you really started life in Brockway. Is that right? Tony Lassiter.
Yes. I was born and pretty much raised in Brockway, New York. And for those who don't know where Brockway is, we're about 2 miles north of Beacon. We're in between Chelsea and Beacon. Difficult life. They had the brickworks there, and most of my family was employed by the brickworks. My mom was employed by the New York Rubber Company here in town. We moved to Beacon, I think, in the early 60s. We moved to Academy Street, 9 Academy Street. I lived there, long time. I think I lived there until 68, and that's when I got drafted into the military and went to North Carolina and then Vietnam. But I tell you, we had great memories of Beacon. I think the only difference now is, I can remember walking up Main Street, I would know everybody. Or people would know me. My wife would always constantly tell me, she said, you should be mayor because everybody knows you. Well, I tell you, it's different today. It's amazing, how the city has changed, and we just kind of deal with it.
All right, we're going to move on. So Ginger, who was, of course, a Dunay, now a Burke. Ginger, tell us about your parents and where you lived in Beacon.
Well, my parents are Lois and Steve Dunay. My father was a factory worker at Nabisco. My mother was a beautiful drum major for the Beacon parades for years. And then she, was a stay-home mom. We had 7 kids in the family. Sadly, 3 of my siblings passed young. But we lived on Blackburn Avenue till I was 8. And we had a great time going to the memorial fields and all that over there when we were little. Then we moved to North Street. And there was 5 kids in Blackburn Avenue with 1 bathroom, 3 bedrooms. And then when we went to North Street, we had 4 bedrooms, but we had 2 more kids and 2 grandmas. So it was fun until everybody had to go to the bathroom. My mom always had big dinners. Every Sunday we'd go down to my parents' house and have cookouts. Dad and Mom were always cooking and taking
nice.
care of us even when we got married. I married that gray-haired man in the photo. We've been together 60 years.
Wow, wow. All right, yay for that. All right, Fred Anelek, tell us your parents and where you lived initially in Beacon. Where was your house?
Basically, I was born in 1937 at the Highland Hospital on Verplank Avenue. Growing up, we lived on North Chestnut Street, right behind Schoolmakers. Anybody remember Schoolmakers? And there was 4 houses on Schoolmakers. It was Bradley's, it was Budney's, it was ours, and there was a Silvix. And my dad died when I was 6, so basically my mom raised my sister and I. And going forward, if you want to hear some of my stories, I got 2 good ones for you.
He asked me if he could use any colorful language, and I told him I had to draw the line at that. But we look forward to your colorful stories, Fred.
No F words.
All right, okay. I hope not. Very good.
Basically, I was on my own, me and my bike, over the years. And like I said, I have some great stories.
Now, what were your parents' names?
My father was Frederick, who died when I was 6. And my mother was a Gallagher, Mary Ellen Gallagher. And I had a sister, Mary Ann.
So how many of you were born at Highland Hospital in Beacon? Wow, okay. Sophia, where were you
No,
born?
I was born in the city, New York City.
In New York City, okay. And Peter?
St. Francis in Poughkeepsie.
Really? Okay, how interesting.
That's it.
No, that's it. No, all right. Don't worry, I got a lot of questions here.
I got a lot of answers for you.
All right. No, you do. I don't want to minimize the impact that education had on all of your success. So tell me, if you would, a little bit about your early schooling here, if you have any memories of any teachers in specific. Sophia, why don't we start with you? Your schooling here in Beacon and your teachers. Anything you recall from those days?
I started off in St. John's, and I had to do a bit of bragging. I was too smart in kindergarten, so they put me in the 1st grade. And I was too smart for the 1st grade because I could read and write when I started school, so they put me in the 2nd grade. So here I was as a little 5-year-old kid in 2nd grade.
Wow.
But when we moved up to Union Street, that's when we lived on Dutchess Terrace in Beacon. And we moved up to Union Street, and I started Spring Street School, which none of you probably even heard of before.
There you go. Okay, good.
And when Mrs. Quackenbush was my teacher,
Oh, okay.
because when I got there, I was too young to be in the 2nd grade. So they put me back in the 1st grade. And my nose was out of joint. But we grew to be best friends anyway, and I succeeded anyway.
That's
I made it, graduated from Spring Street, and the funny part of it is the floors were collapsing.
Yeah.
They had a fire in Spring Street School, and the floors were all collapsing, so we had to do shift classes. We had morning classes, then we had afternoon classes, because they couldn't house all of the...
So about what year was that, Sophia? What years are you talking about?
Well, let's see, I started there in 41, so it had
in
to
the
be
war
42
years.
and 43 during the
Interesting,
war.
yeah. And Ginger, how about you? What about your schooling, your teachers? Where'd you go to school?
Went to St. Joachim's School, and I started when I was 4. I wasn't brilliant, but my father threatened to take my younger brother and sister out if they didn't take me, so that's how I got my...
Those were the days. Yeah.
And 4 years old, I walked from Blackburn Avenue over where Ron's Ice Cream is. 4 years old, my sister was 6. We walked to St. Joachim's as little kids.
Wow.
Never was on a school bus. We, had the sisters there, the nuns. They were very strict. We wore our uniforms and sat with our feet flat on the floor and our hands folded. Not like today
No.
in classrooms. And my kindergarten teacher was Mrs. Clover, who it was Billy's aunt. So she ended up being my aunt through marriage,
Now, I would like to see, would you agree with the following statement? Somehow, Every person in Beacon is somehow related to every other person in Beacon. Who's with me on that? Never say anything negative about any of them because they are invariably related, right?
Yes, be
Right?
careful what you say.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's switch gears. Fred, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience as a kid growing up on the river, because you did some fishing and things on the river, didn't you?
My family, my grandfather and my uncles all did a little fishing on the side to earn some more money. And I lived with my grandfather most of the time because my mother worked in a hat factory across in the creek. There's 2 houses up on the hill.
I'm just going to move your microphone a little bit closer to you and ask everybody if you would just be sure to talk into them, because no one wants to miss a word of what you have to say, Mr. Antolak.
On the creek, there was 2 houses across the creek up on the hill. One was Zick's and one was the Antolaks. And my mom we'd walk from Chestnut Street in the morning to the hat factory, which is along the walkway there, where my mother worked. And my mother would leave me off at my grandmother's. And at the time of the year, depending on the fishing season, the stripers and shad, my uncles would go out to Dennings Point and along the river and put their seine nets out, which was very interesting. I don't want to go take a long time to tell you about it. But they would catch stripers and shad and bring them back, and I would be with them in a boat, and the fish would be up to here and I'd be
Wow.
down to there. And they put them in wooden boxes and ice them down and send them to the city. So I spent a lot of time on the river. When I wasn't with my uncles, my grandfather always gave me a boat to work with, and I used to go out and fish. And fish off the bridge there, which is now incapacitated.
So about how old are you talking about when you'd go out on a boat and fish?
When I was by myself,
Yeah.
or with the kids. I mean, with the-
Either or both with the...
Well, when I was young, I used to be out probably about 6 to 8, and they would catch striped bass and they'd stand alongside of me and hold the thing up and the striped bass would go above my head. And as I got older, probably around 10 going forward, I'd have my own boat for my grandpa.
Think about that. How different things are today, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just a pair of oars.
Wow, wow,
And
wow.
to interrupt you, but Freddie, why don't you tell them how many uncles and aunts you had on the Gallagher side?
We don't have all night, Sophia, but a rough approximation will do.
19.
19, wow, wow, wow. Great
None of them
families.
are alive.
All right, Tony Lassiter, what do you remember about Main Street in Beacon when you were a kid or when you were going to Beacon High? You told me some great stories about leaving Beacon High and running to Main Street. Tell me what you remember about Beacon's Main Street.
I guess my favorite spot, it was Pat's Texas Wiener. Located right next to the Beacon Theater. Yeah, we used to leave Beacon High at noontime. We would run down to Pat's. And I it was like it happened yesterday. I would get 2 hot dogs with mustard, onions, and that special sauce that he would make. And I tell
Nobody
you,
ever made them.
oh yeah, it was like eating a 5-star meal.
In fact, he told me when he came back from Vietnam, that was the first place he went when he got off the train. Right?
I threw my bags on the porch and took a cab up to Pat's, and I had a couple of hot dogs, and I thought I knew I was home back then. And I remember Schumann Army Navy store. I know playing Little League. I played Little League out in Glenham, and I got my first glove from Schumann Army Navy store, and and I tell you, I was a big Brooklyn Dodger fan. My first Major League Baseball game was at Ebbets Field. The Dodgers still here in Brooklyn. And it broke my heart, 1956, 57, when they left Brooklyn.
Who's still mad about that? My father went to his grave mad about that.
Yeah, I'm still mad about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Schumann Army Navy store. Then later on, when I got back from Vietnam, my second stop was Fish's men's stop.
Yeah.
I had to get some new clothes, and Sam Fish, he hooked me up with some beautiful stuff. Went down to Darrell Brothers, got a pair of shoes, and I thought, hey, I'm living the life. I'm back in the world.
You were living the life. Peter, how about you? What do you remember about Main Street when you were growing up?
Well, what we used to do is get on our bikes and take our bikes over to Memorial Park and play, sports. Everybody would meet at the park and we'd play baseball or other sports, basketball, and take our bikes to Main Street to get something to drink. I just remember going to Neary's Pharmacy, the Alps. My father's insurance business was right on Main Street, so I specifically remember one year he asked myself and my friend Mike Marr to put labels on all the calendars that he sent out, these beautiful calendars at Christmas time, and he gave us a $100 bill to go over to Alps and grab something to eat, and that was like, wow.
Wow is right.
Real money. And the Alps, of course, everybody remembers what a beautiful place it was to sit and eat, but I just remember being on our bikes all the time. We used to hop on our bikes, and Jeff Dexter, Pat Moore, three of us would be riding around Beacon and trying to find a game someplace.
How nice. What a nice small town life, right? Any of the other folks, Fred or Ginger or Sophia, anything about Main Street that you remember in particular that you miss?
Well, I always liked going to, when we were kids, going to the block parties. So they always had them in the bank parking lot down on Main Street. Go to the movies, 20 cents.
Wow.
Movies.
You're dating yourself, Ginger. But everyone up until now thought you were about 35. But
Hardly. The Beacon, had movies. The Roosevelt always had those monster movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Your feet stuck to the floor, but it was still fun, to go. And the parades. I used to love the parades and the Easter parade. Everybody on Easter would walk down Main Street. We'd all get new clothes, gloves, new socks with ruffles on them, and hats and backwards.
wow, that is great.
Just anymore, it's cutoffs and t-shirts.
Right.
Yeah, we
Right.
had, a hat, the veil and everything, and
Yeah.
I miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Fred, how about you? Anything you remember about Main Street?
I remember Lower Main Street. If you went down Lower Main Street, at the end, the banks were split. And there was a house at the Apex that was a pizza place.
Lean right into the mic, Fred. I want to make sure they can hear you. Sorry.
There was a building at the Apex where the road split, and there was a pizza place in there, and that was Nuccitelli.
Anybody else remember that? Nuccitelli's?
I remember
Nuccitelli made the best pizza in Beacon, and my mom would send me down on a bus from Chestnut Street to go down and pick up one of these pizzas. Eventually, there was a fire there, and the whole complex changed. But years ago, the place to eat a pizza was Nuccitelli's, which was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Denise, I remember walking from St. John's School, the entire school, to see Lilies of the Field at the Beacon Theater.
Wow.
On an afternoon for a matinee. And I remember thinking, wow, this is pretty, like, the entire school. The nuns did not, take any prisoners. So, there was nobody defecting or crossing against the light or anything. We all got in line, went to see Lilies of the Field, Sidney Poitier, and then came back.
Wow.
Great.
Wow. Fred?
I got one more thing about Main Street in Beacon. I lived on Chestnut Street, and across the street on Chestnut at the intersection of Church Street was nothing but fields. Right now, there's a little set of lawn and stuff, and there was a chain link fence around it on the corner. Well, years ago, that was an entire big field from Chestnut to Cedar. Once a year, I'd get on my bicycle, and when I go down to the train station, lo and behold, the circus was coming to town,
Wow.
and there was elephants on Main Street.
Wow.
And I used to get behind them, and the elephants would get one by one behind each other. If you ever see an elephant walk, they'd take the tusk and wrap it around the tail of the one in front of it, and they'd walk.
Oh my goodness.
And they would walk up and Chestnut Street, come into Chestnut Street, where I lived, and I could sit on my porch and watch it all the time. And that particular field right there was an annual affair
Setup.
of
Carnival.
circus or carnival
Yeah.
involving elephants.
So give me a rough year on that, ballpark year that you're talking about.
1937, 47, 48.
Wow, so after the war. Wow.
when I was
Yeah.
born.
You mentioned the train station. So how many of you remember the actual train station structure, right? Okay. It's a big loss to Beacon. But I'm anxious to know how many of you really remember riding the ferry? Great. Okay. So Sophia, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about what it was like to ride the ferry.
Well, I had to go to summer school. We always went over there.
Somebody so
shopping.
smart
Yeah.
had to go to summer school.
Geometry and I didn't hit it off that well.
Coming out.
Anyway, I was really smart. Until I got in the geometry class, and then the next one was trigonometry. I didn't get along with them either. So anyway, I had to go to summer school, and of course we had to take the ferry. But we had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and if you missed 2 days, they wouldn't take you anymore, because Beacon High didn't have summer school.
Oh, so you had to go over to Newburgh. you're saying.
So we had to
Yes,
go to
okay.
Newburgh to NFA.
Wow.
And anyway, which was one of the ferries got
Yes.
stuck in the mud. It
Right.
was a very drought year.
1950, I think that was.
Wasn't it 50?
1950,
Yeah,
Little Mo.
probably.
But it
Yeah.
had been in the news that the real Missouri battleship had gotten stuck in the mud, and then coincidentally, a few weeks
Yeah.
after, the Beacon ferry gets stuck in the mud and makes headlines all across the country calling it Little Mo. They made T-shirts. It was really quite a big
Yeah.
deal. So, you remember that?
Oh,
You're a legend.
we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get ready to get to NFA. We had to go down around the Bear Mountain Bridge and back up on 9W
Wow.
to get to school by 8 o'clock.
Wow.
So I remember that well because all we did was complain.
Tony, how about you? What do you remember about the ferry?
I can remember as a kid riding it. My mom used to take us over to, I guess there was a Woolworths or something over
Yeah.
on Broadway in Newburgh, and that's where we used to do. She used to do a lot of the school shopping and Easter shopping and stuff like that. So yeah, I remember my first trip on the ferry. You know, it was quite exciting for me because I was allowed to get out of the car and walk on, sit on the side, and just watch. You know, as the waves came
Yeah,
by.
yeah. How
How much did it
fascinating.
cost then, do you think?
Oh,
It was
boy.
like a dime.
Yes, 10 cents.
Yeah,
I'm probably in
yeah,
that
it
era.
wasn't very
Peter, how about you? Were you any ferry memories?
Well, I was 8 years old when they closed, so I just remember going out with my dad
last
with his
rides,
car,
or-
and he, would go over to Newburgh for whatever, and I just remember it was just a treat to get on the ferry.
Yeah. Ginger?
Well, I remember going in my parents' car, you know, they put the car on the ferry and all. But also as teenagers, we would walk all the way to the ferry station from up North Streetway and go down, take the ferry to Newburgh, go up Broadway and do shopping or whatever and walk back. I mean, walking was the way to go.
So you remember in Newburgh a very vibrant Water Street then, when all those stores were there, right? Right? Fred, anything else on the ferry?
Yeah, my dad worked on the ferry before he passed. And if you can remember, if anybody can remember, is when the ferry used to pull in, they had this chain, and then they had this big thing they spun around to secure the actual front of the boat to the dock. And I can remember the way that they spun this thing. This thing was
Yeah.
about the size of this. I also remember the fact that when you want to go on the ferry, I always wanted to go upstairs because they had an upstairs deck.
Yep.
Oh.
Some of those ferries did not have a deck.
Yeah.
So you always wanted to ride across the river upstairs with the area.
Now, did any of you go with your families just to cool off on a summer night, ride the ferry back and forth? So you were,
Yeah.
Right?
My mother used to get the double decker and bring all of us on that double decker to go on the ferry, like we're going to Newburgh. We never get off.
yeah, just rode back and forth to cool
A
off.
couple times until I said, well, I think they had enough.
It didn't cost you any money.
Yeah, and it didn't cost any more, and in an era before air conditioning, what better way to cool the kids off, right? So that, of course, brings us, if we're going to talk about the ferry, then we have to talk about the incline. So let me see, do you remember the incline railway? You do? Okay, all right. Well, let's start, I don't know where to start. Ginger, we'll start with you. Tell me what you remember about it.
Well, as kids, we always, get together and go up on the trolley car and run around the mountain up there and then the casino and use the big, what do they call it? The telescope thing, and you could see New York City sometimes on a clear day. There's lots of refreshments up there, and we just had a ball. A lot of times we'd walk up the mountain, just
Wow.
like everybody does now too. but
Yeah.
the
Was it a little
trolley
bit
was always
scary,
fun.
right,
Yes,
when you were in
and then the other car would be coming down, and you'd be passing all your friends on the other
That was
side.
scary.
Everybody waving
Yeah.
at each other.
That's 2 cars
Yeah,
past.
my brother Tracy worked up there for a while. He's the one that got killed when he was working for Cablevision. I think you were
Yes.
there even at
Yeah.
that point. But yeah, he worked up there, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And then we used to ski the mountain too, but
You did? Okay, wow.
yeah, I don't know how I survived. I did go to the very top one time with a man from Texaco I worked for. He took me, and another guy took my sister-in-law, and we went up. How I'm sitting here today is beyond me.
I'm not buying it. You're a natural athlete,
No,
Ginger.
we did the bunny slope there, but go to
Yeah.
the top, I don't know.
How about you, Fred? You must have memories of the incline. Tell us what you remember.
The incline, every Sunday, my mom, my sister and I would walk, after church, we'd get on the trolley and we'd walk to the top. My mother had already packed the lunch. And it was nice because it was cool up there in the summertime. And we spent every Sunday, I could say that faithfully, on that trolley going up to the top of the mountain. And if my mother didn't pack a lunch, there was a pavilion there at the time before it burnt, and you could buy something for yourself to eat. And also, they had these things you put a diamond or a nickel in,
Yeah.
and you go there and you could look all over Beacon and Newburgh, and look forward to going and looking at these magnifying things, or they're magnified everything, and, spending time, 5 or 6 or 10 cents, whatever it was, just looking around every Sunday on these things.
Tony, how about you? Were you able to get up the incline at all?
Yeah, I can remember, I think we were about 8 or 9. My friend Dan Pruitt and I, we used to go, I would hit my mom's pantry. We would take these little cans of beans, and that would be lunch for the day, and we hike up the mountain. And, when we got up to the top, we'd build a little fire, put these little cans on and heat them up, and that was lunch. But then when he got up there, he looked down and he said, holy mackerel, he was afraid to come back down. So we had to convince him that, hey, look, we made it up there. We got to get back down. We can't stay here all night. So let's do it. And, but yeah, it was interesting. I look at it today and I said, I can't believe that we walked up that mountain.
Right.
It's to
Does
me
it
so intimidating.
surprise any of you to see the popularity of it with hikers and things, or is that something you kind of always grew up with, that people were going up the mountain all the time?
I don't think
I
it was as
remember
busy
the-
then as it is now.
Really?
I went up like 10 years ago with my brother and my daughter and grandkids. And I was so glad I was able to do it one more time before I
Sure.
died, because I'll never get there now. But
Yeah.
and my son-in-law had to practically carry me down because it was just so steep
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
down, and
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
more frail than I was before. So it was a great adventure, though.
Yeah, I'm amazed at just the amount of people that come up from the city every weekend
Yeah.
to go up that
Cars.
mountain.
I know it.
Yeah, the lot's full, and you can see them walking from the train station up to the mountain and then making that track up the mountain.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah. Peter,
amazing.
anything on
Well, I
the
just remember
incline?
going up on the incline railway. It was after the casino had burned, but it was still an incredible view. I remember looking down at the city and thinking, where's the cars, where are the streets? All you see is trees. And it was like, it was just breathtaking to see from that vantage point, to look down on Beacon.
Now, when you were growing up and the incline was here, I know it was in its waning days, right? And then the ski area comes, but did you realize how really unique and significant that incline had been, the
Oh,
casino had?
it was
You knew that, you were
huge.
proud of that you
Yeah.
lived in Beacon with that?
It was a big attraction, yeah.
It was scary sometimes.
They used to have bands up there.
In the
I
middle.
was just turning 16. I wasn't quite 16. And my cousin Pete and Jimmy Chirkalis would go up there on Saturday nights to dance.
Yeah, my parents
And,
did too.
Yeah.
My mother would let me go, but only with Pete and Jimmy. They were the ones, they had to watch me.
Chaperone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And-
little more fun and light topic. You're growing up in Beacon. You're maturing. Where would you go on dates when you were here in Beacon? You tell me that you're walking places and you're taking the train, you're taking the ferry. Sophia, what would be a hot date when you were growing up?
You go to the movies.
To the movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to the movies
That
on
was
Main
it.
Street. All right. Freddie, where'd you bring all those girls?
Touche. To the movies.
To the movies? Okay.
Yep, yep.
Bill, can you justify for your wife? Was it?
Wherever she wanted to go.
Okay, fair enough. Good answer.
We used to go to a lot of bars in Newburgh,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, to clubs and stuff, dancing. And we used to go to the Beau Rivage. I don't know
Oh, yeah,
if anybody
sure.
remembers that. But Billy and I actually owned the property. We just sold it last week. We've owned it for like 20 years, but that was a beautiful,
Yeah,
that was a nice
beautiful
place to
restaurant.
impress the date, to take it to the Beau Rivage.
Yes, right?
Side of the river.
And over in Newburgh, north of the city in Bombville, right on
Yeah.
the waterfront.
Rhode Arms.
Yeah, yeah,
And that burned down also, unfortunately.
yeah. Do any of you have a best friend or a story about somebody from your youth that you want to share that really kind of typifies what it was like to grow up in a small town? Any stories about anybody, Tony, about Dan or anybody else that really made an impression on you as one of your peers or a kid?
Well, yeah, Dan and I mean, like, we've been lifelong friends. You know, I met Dan, I think it was in kindergarten. We were going to school out in Brockway. But Dan was the best man at my wedding. I mean, you know, we literally grew up together. I mean, we did everything together. I can remember going behind South Avenue School and playing stickball from, you know, from early in the morning to late at night. We played Little League together. When I was a kid, I played in Glenham. And, you know, we both played on the Dodgers. And, you know, it was a great experience. And, you know, then I came to Beacon. But Dan was such a smart individual. I mean, you know, yeah, he would get A's on his calculus and geometry tests.
He learned everything he knew from Sophia.
Pretty much so, yeah.
She was his tutor.
But yeah, but you know, Dan he currently lives down in Tampa. But yeah, I mean, you know, we're on the phone or texting each other, you know, every day. You know, so we stay in touch. And,
So lifelong friends, literally.
Lifelong friends, yeah.
Anybody else have a story like that,
Yeah,
Ginger?
I have a couple of girlfriends that I started St. Joachim's with in kindergarten, Joanne Fredericks DeCastro and Bernadette Hayden. And my parents were friends with the DeCastro parents. Joanne and I and Tommy DeCastro have been friends. Our children are friends and our grandchildren are friends. My
Wow.
grandson
Wow.
played ball.
That's
with
classic Beacon,
four
isn't it? Right?
generations of
Yeah. Yeah.
friendships.
Yeah.
And
Freddie?
If
4
you went
years
to
old.
St. John's, it was St. Joseph's.
Yeah.
It wasn't St. Joachim's.
It's a flip of a coin, I think, right? So, Peter?
So Jeff Dexter and I, I'm going to say we were 14, 15, 16, would go to Valentine's on Main Street. And they didn't check ID. And so we would buy beer and we would go drink behind Valentine's, or sometimes that lot that's being, there's a lot of excavation going across from St. John's on Verplank Avenue. I sent Jeff a picture. I said, look, they're taking our drinking spot and trying to put a
I
house there.
assume that the statute of limitations has passed, Your Honor,
Yes.
since you're telling us this story tonight.
I know Jeff would want me to tell that story if he's watching this video.
Very good. And did any of you play any sports in Beacon? Do you have any memories of teams that you were on, or sports, anything, even Little League or CYO basketball, that kind of thing? The ladies, any teams?
I was a cheerleader. That's supposedly a sport now.
Yes, it is.
Playing.
Yes,
But,
yeah. Tony, you did some
I
sports,
remember
right?
Ginger as a cheerleader.
Oh! Were you in the same year at Beacon
We're
High?
only a couple of days apart.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh, how nice is that?
Yeah.
Great.
But yeah, now, like I said earlier, I played Little League in Glenham, and then I played Babe Ruth League here in Beacon. played football for Beacon High, wrestled at Beacon High, played baseball at Beacon High, you know, and then I played a low ball in the service, you know, so I consider myself an athlete. You know, I don't know if my sons consider me that way, but, you know, yeah, I always brag to them, you know, what I used to do, and, you know, and then played a lot of ball when I went to work for IBM, you know, played a lot of intramural ball with them, so, yeah, I love my sports.
Yeah, yeah. Fred, did you play any kind of sports?
No, I didn't do a lot of, I think they didn't have Little League, they didn't have Babe Ruth, they had none of that stuff when I was...
Nothing organized? Yeah. How about, or any of you in like
PAL.
Chandler's or anything like that? Any of the marching bands?
No.
No?
I will tell you one
They
thing.
had that. Chandler's was one of the,
Longest running bands, yeah.
but I wasn't into that. They had the PAL, which I played in, but most of the time I had a job.
Yeah.
But when I grew up, and
You were fishing most of the time, I think.
That
Yes.
was my kids were into ball, and I coached. I did coach
Later, yeah. Peter?
There was a, my father and Jeff Dexter's father, Jack Dexter, among others, played in the Twilight League,
Twilight League.
which was kind of semi-pro baseball that was played both in Beacon and Poughkeepsie. And I remember going over to Memorial Field to watch them play. I remember Tucker Blanchfield being on the team as well. It was very, it was fun.
Well, Beacon also had the Beacon Bears, right? Which was kind of a
Yes.
semi-pro football team, right? Right? So a real proud tradition of sports here. Anybody have any recollections related to the great boxing tradition here? Emilio Bettina and up in Neville, you know.
I
Neville.
remember Emilio Patino when he worked at Shaw Motors.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
Oh,
Neat. Yeah.
He used to come in the restaurant quite frequently.
Let's talk about your first job. So, if you had a job, was it here in Beacon? Peter, what was your first job?
I delivered papers for the Evening News and had a route that went from North Avenue, right up by Van Ness Road, all the way down North Avenue to Lafayette, down to Manel. And every day delivered the newspaper.
You know, I'm an old reporter and I went to school for journalism, and I don't really want to see the answer, but raise your hand if you still get a daily newspaper. Wow. Wow, even more than I thought, honestly. So,
And my
I
boss.
never thought we could live without it before, right?
My boss was Kay Porter, and
Okay, yep.
she was
A
a
taskmaster.
phenomenal boss. She made sure that we were all, everybody know Kay Porter? I mean, she was just a great
Yeah,
lady.
yes, she was.
She kept the you know, Dick Shea was in there too,
Yep.
but Kay kept the place running.
Yeah. Sophia, did you ever work with, you were at the restaurant probably,
I
right?
just got stuck working all the time. As soon as my eyes were open, that's the first thing I heard. You gonna work today? No,
It's too
first
bad
job.
you were so
I didn't have
shy,
a choice.
really,
I didn't have a
yes.
choice.
What was your
Yes.
first job?
In the restaurant,
Okay.
Yeah.
George's.
Tony, did you?
Yeah, Mr. Cushman was our business teacher at Beacon High, and so one summer he hooked it up where, you know, he was going to take about 5 or 6 students down to Tuck Tape, and I thought that we were going to work in the front office, you know. Well, long and behold, you know, I was one of the ones that got stuck out on the manufacturing floor, and you know, where they were making tape, and I mean, literally, it was physical hard work. You know, we were running tape for like 8 hours a day, and right then and there, I knew that you know, this manufacturing stuff isn't for me. I was going to college the next summer. And
Maybe that's why he had you there, see? He knew you
I mean, you know,
were destined.
Yeah, this factory life is not for me.
Yeah. Ginger?
Well, I babysat as a young teenager, and I was very good at that with all the siblings in the house, good at changing diapers and stuff. But then I worked as a waitress at Hunt's Log Cabin, which was down past Duchess Manor, a little Italian restaurant. I worked there as a waitress. And then I went to Texaco when I was 17. It was a program where you went to school in the morning and you went to work
Oh,
in the
okay, like a
afternoon.
co-op, yeah.
And I was there for 10 and a half years.
Wow. Now, Ginger also made some history when she was at Texaco, and I wrote about it in the Beacon Historical Study newsletter. Tell them what claim to fame you have when working at Texaco.
Well, when you worked at Texaco, or probably all the offices, you weren't allowed to wear pants to...
So did you hear that? You couldn't wear pants, ladies, to work.
You couldn't wear
Yeah.
slacks. So they featured me and another woman, Rita Rogers, and I forget the other girl's name. One had, finally we were allowed to wear slacks. I had a mini dress on that, really mini, and somebody else had a midi on. But there was a groundbreaking right there that women were finally allowed to wear slacks.
So that was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Okay.
To work. And I made $76 a week, and Billy made $75, and he married me for my money.
All right, Fred, where was your first place of employment?
My first place was a place called Beacon Cleaners, I think it was. It was owned by a person by the name of Quigley, and this was his second job or second operation. He also worked at West Point, and that place was where the shopping center is here in Beacon. What's the name of that store? The big store in Beacon.
Seafood?
Huh?
Seafood?
It was in there as a complex of stores. People had heard that. And I used to go in there, and it was closed. And I do it a couple hours a day, and basically that was my first job. Other than that, I would deliver newspapers, and I was cutting people's lawns. So
Yeah, working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. We danced around this topic a little bit in some respects, but we have coming up in the fall, thanks to our great Special Projects Manager Diane Lapis and our Vice President Collections Diane Murphy, a big project about urban renewal in Beacon and the impact that it had here. So since I have this brain trust here of people who literally lived through it, I just wanted to get your perspective. Do you remember urban renewal, and do you remember what you or your parents thought about it at the time? What do you think it did or meant for Beacon? So Sophia, why don't we start with you?
It was a shame what it did to the city of Beacon. They came in and dug up the sidewalk and all of Main Street from one end to the other. And all the businesses closed up. They didn't have a choice. People there wasn't a sidewalk for them to walk into the stores if they wanted to. We were fortunate enough to be able to stay because we had the municipal parking lot in the back. So my parents put in a door in the back.
Wow, now we
With an
know why there's a door in the back.
entrance
Yeah, right?
It cost a pretty penny, but it was worth it because we were able to remain open when all the rest of them stayed closed. And Charlie Gallagher, Freddie's uncle, had the Midtown Market right next door, and he was able to stay open because they'd come in our place and go into Midtown. But all the rest of them closed up. There was Fisherman's Shop, Nikki's Luggage, Grants, everything that was there just closed up all the way
Wow,
down.
we think so often of the impacts down on, the other end of Main Street where,
yeah.
the buildings were actually raised, but it had
Everything.
impacts in Midtown. Yeah. Tony, I'm particularly aware of its impact on the African American community, on the immigrant community, many of whom were, living that end of town. So your recollections.
Well, yeah, living on the West End, West End was pretty much devastated. The streets like Ferry Street, Beekman Street, they were all wiped out. They're all gone. And I know 9D, runs really pretty much where the old Ferry Street used to be, and it hooks up with Walcott. But all of my friends, their homes were taken away, and or they had to sell them for pretty little money. But yeah, the area just changed so much. I can remember, Bank Square is no longer there. There used to be a pool hall on the corner there. Lewis's Sandwich Shop. All those shops are gone. So it pretty much devastated that whole area.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take the opposite position just so we have a second
Yes,
side. My
yes.
father, Tom, was the chairman of the Urban Renewal Agency for 10 years in Beacon, and what I remember as a child, first of all, he went to meetings, it seemed like every night to talk about what they were doing. What I do remember is that some of the housing that was taken was substandard. I think the federal government's thought was, and I was 10 at the time, so I don't remember any details other than the fact they thought we wanted to improve people's living conditions, and they built some replacement housing to take the place of some of the housing that they took down. They probably overdid it like the government usually does, and we lost a lot of pretty buildings
I will
because
say,
of it.
some of you may have known my former mother-in-law, Agnes Van Buren, who worked at the Glenham School, and that was her reaction when I asked her once about, what it was like in Beacon, and she said some of the housing was just so dangerous. The homes had not been invested in, and they were unsafe in many respects, and it was sad to see people living like that. So there is two sides to every topic. Ginger, any thoughts on urban renewal?
No, I mean, I think, I could say it was sad what a lot of people went through losing their homes and stuff, but I think Beacon has come back better and more vibrant, Looks pretty nice now, and
Yeah.
just times change.
Yeah. Freddie, any thoughts on urban renewal?
I've got to tell you, guilty as charged. I was a treasurer for 7 years. We did some good things and we did some bad things. I don't consider the things that we're doing were bad. There were things that were done that needed to be done. So I'll pass on that.
All right.
I also want to point out that the historic preservation movement had not taken place at that point in time.
Right.
They were about to take down Grand Central Station until Jackie Kennedy and
Yeah.
stepped in.
Right.
So, we're looking back from our perspective on, yes, we need to preserve buildings, and there wasn't that imperative back
At
then.
the time.
People didn't have that appreciation, and, you can't say that it was good, because I think we lost some beautiful buildings, but if you're looking at where those decision makers were at that point in time, I don't think there was this preservation movement say, please save this building.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's always fascinated me is that, the ferry obviously is ending when the bridge is built in '63, and we lost that whole end of Main Street. We used to be a community that was a waterfront community that you got off a ship in the earliest days, right, or you got off the train, and you went right up Main Street, and it took you up and out through what we know today as, I guess I call it the Talix property, right, whatever, but, green fuel economizer, and it was a flowing Main Street that took you to Fishkill, and our Main Street kind of got truncated at both ends, leaving it kind of an awkward thoroughfare instead of this natural artery that led through the city, and I think that for me was one of the things that I regret. So anyway, let's talk about some happy things, because believe it or not, time is flying, people, and I do want to leave a little bit of time for some questions. What I would love to hear is your perspective on what was it about growing up in Beacon in particular that you really felt kind of shaped who you were as a person or had a later impact on your life? What was it about this community that made you the person that you are today? Can we start with you, Peter?
Well, I just think living in a small town is extremely valuable, that you get a chance to see your friends, your family members. I was one of 8 children, and our collective, family tree, I just think it's just wonderful. I was glad that I came back from law school and settled back in Beacon, and our children were raised in Beacon. They all loved the experience of knowing so many people, and it was our neighborhood was truly, we all knew each other very, very well, and it was just I think it helps you mature in a positive way, because you always do have somebody looking over. Your parents had a lot of help because the people in the neighborhood were watching what was going on. They
Yeah.
couldn't be everywhere, but
Yeah.
there's always eyes on you somewhere, and I thought that was a positive.
I remember when when I toured the new City Hall and police station when it was built, and Fred Antelik was giving me a little tour, and we came to the jail cell, and he said, "Oh, do you want to step inside?" And I said, "Well, this might be my only time to be in a jail cell." And he goes, "Are you kidding? You have 3 Van Buren sons. You think this is the only time you're going to see a jail cell?" So I know just what you mean, Peter. Sophia, what do you think? What was it about Beacon that made you who you are today?
I was kind of spoiled because my parents had the business, and it was a very popular place, and I spent a lot of time in there and knew everybody in Beacon. Every place I went, if I went into a drugstore and if I didn't have enough money, take it away. I know you'll bring me the money. And that's the way they
That's
all
a
were, each and every one.
Yeah.
I was
A
just
family atmosphere.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
all family. And I'll tell you the truth, a couple of months ago, I went to Beacon, I went to the library. I didn't know one person on Main Street. Not one.
Yeah, you used to know everyone, right?
Yeah, I used to know everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody
Right,
knew
exactly.
me. I couldn't play hooky. I couldn't, anytime I did anything wrong, my parents knew about it before I got home.
Tony, how about you? What do you think it was about Beacon? And I want to just say before you speak, he is really a remarkable person. If you don't know his story of his Purple Heart in Vietnam, what an advocate he has been for veterans, all the work that he did on the Purple Heart Hall of Honor in New Windsor, would you join me in recognizing him for his service to our country? I'm his PR person, so as the mother of sons, I'd love to know what it was about Beacon that made you the man you
And
are.
I want the record to reflect, we asked Tony last year to run for office. A couple times.
Right.
Yeah, and I think Peter hit on it. I mean, I think it's the closeness. Families would like look out for one another. I just felt comfortable in town. There wasn't a lot of crime growing up. All of my friends, who grew up with me, like they all left town, and like they're all over the place now. But I decided to raise my family here. I met my wife up in New Paltz, and we decided to come back and live here in Beacon. And Beacon is my home. I mean, I will die here. It's just like Sophia said. I used to be able to walk up Main Street, and I knew everybody in town. Or everybody knew me, and that's changed a little bit, but still, I'm. It's home for me, and it will always be my home.
Ginger, your thoughts on
I
that?
agree, the same thing, just, you know everybody in town, we all grew up together, we married people from, a lot of us, you married people that were from the same hometown, and I don't know about like today meeting people online and all that, kind of can imagine that. There's something to be said, like I lived on one side of the tracks, lived on the other side of the tracks. And,
Yeah.
a Burke family and the Dunay family, and my parents had, 7 kids. They had 14 grandchildren, 23 great-grandchildren. So everywhere we go, somebody knows us too,
It's nice.
One time somebody said to me, a girlfriend, she said, you could be walking down the street with the Pope, and they say, who's that with Ginger? Everybody knew me.
Again, you're very shy, Ginger. All right. And Freddie, how about you? What is it so special about Beacon?
I want to ditto Peter, Sophie, Tony, and Ginger on what they have to do, through their expressing Beacon. I wanted to tell you one thing. I wanted to get it in just in case we got out of here before I get out here. Years ago when I was on a bike, okay, I was riding up to the area of the Forestall School. Everybody know where Forestall
Yeah,
School is?
right.
To the right of the Forestall School, looking at it, was a big play area. And behind that play area, up on the hill in the back, is Anderson Street. So I went up there one day, and they were having a circus. I was on my bicycle, and I came down the sidewalk, and I stopped there, and I was watching what they were doing, a circus. And all of a sudden, coming down off the hill, on a horse, was Roy Rogers and Trigger. And I tell this story all the time, and I've been told that I'm supposed to know what. I remember this because it sticks in my mind as a youth, probably 12, 14 years old.
Wow. You need to give me a year on that. We'll look for it in our newspaper archive,
And
see if we can prove you
I
right.
never heard that ever again, other than the fact that I saw it.
Wow. Weren't these fabulous panelists here tonight? Right? I'm so grateful to them for agreeing. As I said, we've never done anything like this before, and I didn't give them any questions in advance because I wanted this to just be a heartfelt conversation. We do have time for just maybe a few questions from the audience. Anybody want to pose a topic that we didn't talk about tonight that you'd love to hear their perspective on? In the back, in the blue, yes. Oh, okay. Ski area or ice skating. Ginger, you mentioned that you had a near-death experience there,
On
but
the top of the mountain, yeah.
Yeah.
But we went ice skating all the time over to Memorial Park.
Dutchess Ski Area used to have Tuesday nights for $3. And I remember going with Jeff Dexter, and we used to go skiing there every Tuesday night for $3. It was unbelievable. It was great.
We need to get Jeff Dexter here to give him equal time next time, right? So he can tell these stories. Any other things that we missed that we didn't talk about? Yes, in the back. Yep.
I thought where we used to cruise to in our cars, like Eddie Russell driving and walking through.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh, we're nodding some heads here. Yes. How about going up and down Main Street in your cars, right?
Sure.
Right.
$1 worth of gas.
$1 worth of gas, so all night. Yes.
My father used to tell me stories about where the trees they in the park there was a dump.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and it was burned every Saturday morning. So how many of you remember that? Seeing the burning, right? That's how they got rid of the refuse. That was Phil, and it was the... Yeah, so how wonderful that the city was able to reclaim that and has such magnificent parks today. Yes.
Oh, yeah, my parents talked about
Did
it.
anybody ever? No one ever did that here.
My parents talked about it.
Fred, Anna, like you walked across the ice.
No, 4 guys did that. They walked to St. Patrick. They worked at St. Patrick.
Wow.
They walked.
Wow.
4 guys walked across that river.
Is that right? Now, Peter, did you cross the river to go to high school?
I went to Lourdes.
Oh, you went to Lourdes. That's right. I'm sorry. Okay.
One thing I wanted to bring out we didn't talk about was doctors making house calls. We had in our neighborhood on Manel Avenue, Dr. Frank. Dr. Frank was a wonderful doctor, and I remember him coming to our house. It was, right down the street. If one of the kids was sick, he would come
Wow.
in and he would, take care of you, and, just like something that our children probably had no concept at all about,
Yeah.
But also, I remember going to the doctor's office on when Dr. Munn and I remember waiting hours to go see them. When you went in to see them, there was like always a long line to get in to see them.
Yeah.
So.
What great memories this has been. Last question here from Dean.
How many of you had dinner and dancing at the Snowflake Lounge?
Wow, where was that, the Snowflake Lounge? Snowflake.
Ski
Oh,
lodge.
Dutchess Ski Area, down the lower one. Yeah, anybody do that?
Yeah.
Put an era on that. What years are we talking about?
Well, let's see.
70s? Oh,
About 60s.
So 70.
Probably 1975.
okay. All right, I did see another hand back here. I'm sorry. There you go. So don't wonder why antibiotics are no longer effective on you. Now we know the answer. So, all right. Again, will you join me in thanking our panelists tonight? They are good sports, right? I'm so pleased with the crowd. I'm so pleased with your attention and your response. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Before we close, let me just give you a couple of announcements. Coming up on August 8th at Two Way Brewing, I'll be doing a little sideshow program on the Newburgh Beacon Ferry. They invited us to come down and do, I think, a total of 7 slideshows on Beacon history. It's been... Ed, you can testify, standing room only crowd, right? So if you're interested, come down. It's in the back community room, starts at 7 at Two Way Brewing. Our August 22nd meeting is going to be a little bit different. You're going to have to make a reservation for it because we are going to take the Newburgh Beacon Ferry over to Newburgh. We're going to have dinner at Billy Joe's with a presentation from the Newburgh historian. Then we're going to take the ferry back again for August. We always had a picnic on the waterfront. We thought we'd get a little different perspective and see it from the water this time. And then you are the first folks to hear this beyond the Beacon Historical Society Board of Trustees. I'm excited to announce this year's honorees for our 7th annual Beacons of History Award. Many of you have supported us. It's the Thursday after Election Day. This year that falls on November the 9th. And our honorees this year in the individual category will be Ian McDonald and his late wife Joanne. Very happy to honor them. They've been very generous to us, both financially and sharing their memories in their collection. And then this year, and I really hope you'll all come out to support us, in our group or business category, we're going to be honoring our volunteer firefighters here in Beacon, right? All right, did everybody get a door prize ticket from my lovely assistant? Yes.
There you go.
Terry? Yes.
Everybody's more than welcome to go back upstairs into the girls' room. Whether you drink or not, you can go up and sit and chat, and if you want to reminisce,
Very good. That would be great. And actually,
no problem.
thank you. We have to set the room back up again for day camp in the morning. We have to put all these chairs back. So I guess I would ask that you do politely follow. And Terry has been great as our liaison here at the Elks Club, and I'm really delighted. I should have mentioned that there are restrooms in the back, and of course there's emergency exits here. So everybody has a little, too late, sorry. Don't tell the volunteer firemen we're honoring. Okay. The son of one of our panelists will draw our door prize for tonight. Okay. Chris, can you turn the lights on? Or Terry, can you turn the lights up? Now wait, don't call it out. Don't call it out, because I have to tell them what the...
I gotta put my glasses on.
All right, but we're made for each other, sir. Okay, if you enjoyed tonight, I'm going to tell you that you would love a copy of this book. It's called Beacon's Memory Keeper and Storyteller. It's the 38 years of newsletters from our past president, the late Bob Murphy. It's a wonderful book, and it's tonight's door prize. I have a couple of them here with me. They're $40 cash, or you can even, if you have a PayPal account, I give a little PayPal emblem, and you can purchase it via PayPal. All right, everybody ready? You got your ticket? What time is it? I like to, old broadcasters don't like to be late. Okay.
8:06.
511-445 is the winner of tonight's. Oh, please. All right, Chuck, come forward.
Chuck Miller.
You have to take a picture, Chuck Miller.
Talk about Beacon. How you doing, Chuck? Haven't seen him in years. Chuck. Hi, Chuck. Hey. Hi. Haven't seen you in ages.
See you, Tom.
Are you back in Beacon, aren't you?
Back, buddy. You've been here 5